Fellas, today we're talking about Trials. There was a lot of heat this past weekend in regards to the matchmaking changes Bungie made. And that is, of course, adding a flawless matchmaking pool. Essentially, if you have gone flawless in a single weekend, you will be permanently added to a flawless only pool for that weekend. And that's not character-based, guys. That is account-wide. Meaning if you happen to go flawless on your Warlock, you can't just jump on your Titan and suddenly be playing in the kiddie pool. Now again, Bungie emphasized in the TWAB last week that the games post 7 wins had significantly higher 5-0 games. Now I wanted us to take a look at the numbers to just kind of get an idea of how these changes affected the Trials player base, and then of course give my thoughts. So first up, week 1 almost broke 750,000 players. That's a record weekend with over 4.5 million matches played and 235,000 players that went flawless. Incredible weekend, guys. But some things to take away about week 1. Number 1, it was the first week that Bungie added matchmaking. So you had a lot of people just kind of testing the waters. And number 2, it also took place on one of the most iconic maps for Trials of Osiris, Burning Shrine, aka Burnout. Now I know many of us, when we see this map, even if the weekend has terrible loot, I get on just to play on this map. Now with that being said, the second week brought a little less there in the numbers. Only 700,000 players played, which is still an impressive week, way more impressive than anything we saw pre-season of the loss. But notice the matches themselves being almost 1.5 million less matches. That's a little concerning. Again, I talked about it before, that audience retention, player retention is the number that Bungie needs to chase. That's the number that really tells you whatever it is that you're doing is being successful. The longer you can keep somebody in Trials and playing the game mode, the better. Now, flawless players, 235,678 for week 1 and 255,908 players in week 2. Now, this is also an important number. Understand, the changes that Bungie made to Trials as matchmaking was to target those players that have not gone flawless and thus produce more flawless players. Fellas, looking at these numbers, and I know I got a lot of sweaty players, streamers, everyone else that wants me to condemn these changes, but just looking at the numbers, it is producing more flawless players, which was Bungie's whole goal to begin with. For example, I played Trials on Friday. We were playing in the normal Trials of Osiris pool with everyone else. But when we went flawless, about Friday evening is when Bungie kicked things on, where flawless players were now only playing up against flawless players. Was it more difficult? You bet your booty. I mean, things got sweaty real quick. All those adept drops we were getting the week before, post 7 wins with our flawless card, well, that wasn't as likely anymore. And I noticed, especially when I was in the flawless pool, that solo play was so difficult. Every single game felt like a tournament game. And honestly, what really happened was that solo play, because I do like to just jump into the playlist just to play a couple solo games here and there, solo play was almost impossible, at least Friday, Saturday in the flawless pool. Now I mentioned Friday and Saturday. Sunday, things started to ease up a little more. I noticed that games were becoming a little more manageable, a little easier. It was still sweaty, but not on the level of sweat that it was earlier that weekend. And then Monday rolled around and we did carries all day Monday, and it was actually one of the best days of carries we've ever done, which is unusual. Mondays are normally way too sweaty, but it was one of the best days. Now, a couple things contributed to that. Number 1, that flawless pool was getting bigger. More people were going flawless, more people were being added to that pool of players, and at the beginning of the weekend, only the sweatiest of the sweat were in that pool. But as the weekend progressed, that pool became bigger and bigger, and overall, things became easier. And number 2, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it takes me a day or two to just kind of narrow down how to play a map. Even if I've played it a million times before, considering that the sandbox changes season to season, builds change, it takes me a couple of days to make those adjustments, of which we did. And eventually, I narrowed down to a build that I felt comfortable with. And this is, of course, one of our best solo builds. Feel free to check it out if you like, guys. And seeing some of the numbers reported by Trials Report, they even pointed out that lower KD players played more, most notably due to the fact that all the flawless players were getting out of the regular Trials pool and playing only amongst themselves. But wait, Cross, what about everyone that was sitting there resetting their cards at 6 wins? What about those guys? Well, look, I don't really condemn those guys. A lot of those guys do trial carries. We do trial carries as well, but I like loot too much that I'm just like, yo, I'd rather just get loot. If I'm this close to the lighthouse, I'm gonna get that final win. But there are a lot of people that reset at 6 wins because they did not want to fail people when they tried to carry them. And trying to carry someone who's a flawless virgin while playing against nothing but flawless players, you could see the difficulty here, which is why you saw players resetting the cards cards at 6 wins. The only really concerning statistic to me from Trials report is that, yes, there was an increase in Guardians going flawless. However, going flawless more than once dropped by 67%. You see, once you've gone flawless once, you now have to go flawless in the flawless pool, and there's no way around it. And currently right now, Bungie doesn't have anything rewarding you for going flawless in the flawless pool. So from what we saw from a lot of players was once they went flawless once, they were like, all right, man, I'm done. I'm not about to play against nothing but flawless players for this next flawless. The matchmaking changes Bungie introduced, yes, is good for players that have never gone flawless. But the lack of repeat flawless and of course audience retention or player retention overall is what worries me the most. Now, to be honest with you guys, my goals for Trials of Osiris does align with Bungie's. I want the playlist to organically do well. Don't get me wrong, carries are fun. I enjoy playing with you guys, but at the same time, if the playlist is in a good enough state where you can get yourself flawless, that is definitely way better. The problem is, despite the numbers being what they are, yes, you still had relatively good numbers this past week, breaking 700,000 players on a very, very bad map. Shores of Time is not a good map. And overall, lower KD players playing more, and of course, more flawlesses actually occurring. I would argue and say that Bungie's goal was met here. The only concern out of all of this is player retention. That was one of the beautiful things about the first week of Trials, was that people just couldn't get enough of Trials. Everyone was playing it constantly, all weekend long. We played so many games that first week, but there's too many other variables here for me to say whether or not week 1's matchmaking was superior to week 2. There was a better map, Trials of Osiris just launched, new loot system, new anti-cheat, matchmaking to even begin with. You get the picture, guys. This is something that we're gonna have to look back on 6, 7, 10 weeks from now to really get an idea of whether or not this matchmaking change was actually beneficial for the playlist organically. I'm not talking about from a streamer or carry perspective. We have to understand that when we give advice to Trials or for any game mode inside of Destiny, it needs to be from the perspective of organic growth. Now, the only drawback that I saw from all of this was just playing with friends. You see, Friday night came around, and yes, I normally play with like my normal group, Bombad, Les, maybe a couple other sweaties here and there. But when some of my other buddies got on, they were like, yo, you want to run a card? If they were on the lower end of the scale, I had to tell them, man, I don't think we should play together. I've gone flawless for the weekend, and you haven't. And I know it's going to be more of a struggle for you playing with me trying to go flawless than it would just be for you guys to just play with each other and just find a random, or at least someone who hasn't gone flawless. That was a bummer. And I saw that pretty much across the board for a lot of other streamers and players, which is why this system to me, guys, is really not a bad system if it was character-based and not account base. I take my Warlock flawless, but my buddies who never play PvP, who just want to play Trials for fun, want to just play a couple games with me, I can hop on my Hunter or my Titan, and we can continue playing Trials against regular players and not flawless players, tournament style, game after game. I see what Bungie's trying to do here, and I see the numbers, but you would see a lot less 6-win resets if you allowed this system to be character-based and not account-based. That's just my thoughts, guys. Would this mean people would still work around it? Sure, but you have to meet people in the middle. And doing it this way, in my eyes, is how you can still keep flawless players playing against flawless players, as eventually they're going to get all their characters flawless. But in the process, they can too also enjoy the playlist with their friends and whoever it is that they're playing with. Overall, guys, that is Trials from this past weekend. Let me know below how it went for you, what you think of some of these numbers. Do you think these changes are great? Do you think they're terrible? Honestly, I feel like if Bungie found a way to make things character-based instead of account-based, things would be much better. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.